Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Blue Cheese Popovers. That's right, I am very excited to be sharing this new and possibly slightly improved popover recipe. And while we may have tweaked the ingredient proportions a little bit, we are still going to be using our foolproof cold oven method for making these. And why this technique is so fun to use is that it's literally the opposite of everything every popover expert tells you should do. So basically we're going to produce something very good by, culinarily speaking, being very, very bad. So with that, let's go ahead and get started by mixing up our batter, which is going to start with some whole large eggs, to which we will add some salt. Plus, if you're feeling frisky, a shake of cayenne. And if possible, try to use room temperature eggs, since those tend to work out a little better. We're also going to pour in some milk, which ideally is not ice cold. So what I like to do is zap it in the microwave for a few seconds, just to sort of take the chill off. And that's it. We're going to finish this up with a little bit of vegetable oil. Plus, last but not least, a couple cups of all-purpose flour. And once everything's in there, we can go ahead and take our whisk and mix this until it's just combined. And a great tip here, since we're going to have to pour this stuff into muffin tins, or maybe popover pans, is to actually mix it up in something we can pour out of. Like this large measuring cup, for example. Okay, unless you're a fan of drips, this really is the way to go. And yes, this would have been way easier to mix in a larger container. But you know what? I knew it would fit, and I'm nothing if not stubborn. So I just went slow. And eventually, after many, many minutes of mixing, it finally all came together. But anyway, no matter what you're using, we'll go ahead and whisk this up until it's virtually smooth. And that's it. Once we've battered our batter ingredients into a batter, we will cover that in plastic and let it rest. All right, anywhere from an hour on the countertop to several hours or overnight in the fridge. But the point is, we do have to let this batter rest a little bit. And while it does, at some point, we'll go ahead and prep our pan. And by prep, I mean generously grease with butter. Plus, for a little bit of insurance, we will also apply some non-stick vegetable oil spray. Since a very important part of popover production is being able to get them out of the pan to eat them. And that's it. Once our pan is lubricated, we'll go ahead and start filling up these cups, but only like 80% of the way. Which, if you're into fractions, is 4/5. And by the way, one annoying thing about this recipe is that it makes enough batter for about 14 of these. But I love the formula and don't want to change it. So what I should be doing here is using 2 pans with like 7 in each. But for filming purposes, I'm just going to do 1 pan. And then what we'll do once our batter's in is go ahead and top these with a little bit of blue cheese. Or I guess a lot if you want. But when we cook with it, a little bit of blue cheese goes a long way. So for me, a teaspoon or 2 is plenty. But you go ahead and put in as much as you want. I mean, you guys are, after all, the Les McCanns of how to fill these pans. But you should be aware of a couple things. All right, the more stuff you put in a popover batter, the less it's going to puff up, and you'll generally get a little bit of a cavity in the center, which I think looks amazing. But be careful, we don't want to weigh these down too much. And that's it. Once these have been cheesed, we can move on to the part of the recipe that really drives the popover experts crazy, since we are actually going to place this in a cold oven. Okay, normally these cups are greased and then preheated in a really hot oven. And then we have to quickly pull the pan out and add our batter, which can be kind of stressful and maybe even dangerous. But we're not doing it. We're simply going to transfer this pan into the center of a cold oven. And yes, I put a drip pan underneath just in case. And then once we close the door, and then look at our pans reflected in the glass, we will set our heat to 450. Whoops. There we go. And then we will set our timer to 30 minutes. After which, if everything's gone according to plan, they should look like this. Oh yeah, that, my friends, is one big old batch of beautiful. And by the way, I said 30 minutes, but it might be 35. So if after 30 minutes, yours are not as big and brown and beautiful as these, go ahead and give them another few minutes. And yes, the bottom should be golden brown as well. And then what we're supposed to do here is go ahead and poke these with a knife. And that's so steam can escape and a vacuum isn't formed, which makes these shrink up. Now, having said that, because of our blue cheese addition, these sort of form their own natural vent holes. But hey, poking things is fun, so I went ahead and did it anyway. And that's it. We can go ahead and serve these immediately, right out of the pan. Or we could transfer them to a rack like this to take some pictures. And despite breaking all the rules about how these are supposed to get baked, as you can see as I break one open here, we have the perfect texture, with that crispy, flaky, well-browned outside, and that soft, supple, hollow center. And I didn't bother grabbing a fork, but I will rub them together so you can hear the outside. Oh yeah, friction don't lie. And as far as the taste goes, I very much enjoy a plain popover. But when you add a little bit of that slightly salty, irresistibly funky blue cheese, It really does take these up to a whole other level. Plus, blue cheese is also a great pairing with any kind of roast beef, which traditionally is what these would be served next to, ideally with some gravy to ladle into the holes. Oh, and speaking of roast beef, once you enjoy these freshly baked and warm alongside that, what we can do with the leftover cold roast beef is combine that with a split open popover, maybe swiped with a little bit of mayonnaise, to create one of the simplest and best sandwiches ever. And we'll finish that with a little bit of freshly ground black pepper. And yes, you can, if you want, reheat your popovers in a hot oven for a few minutes before you cut them open, if you are going to make one of these sandwiches the next day, which you really should. Oh, and before I sign off here, I want to show you a little extra bonus footage of a test I did with these using a popover pan. But instead of using our patented cold oven method, I actually tried these in a hot oven, using just a little bit of vegetable oil to grease them, because I thought this popover pan was non-stick. And while they did puff up magnificently, the pan was not non-stick. It was actually stick, and I could not get these out. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the keys to popovers is being able to get them out of the pan so you can eat them. So that was unfortunate, but lesson learned. But anyway, I thought you'd enjoy seeing a few scenes of this tragic event. And as you saw, my actual non-stick muffin pan worked out just fine. But anyway, that's it. How to make blue cheese popovers using the easiest, most foolproof method ever invented. Which is why whether you're making these for a fancy roast beef dinner, or just something warm to eat next to a weeknight salad, I really do hope you give these a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.